bull. Let's get right to the floor show. Joining me now, trader Keith Fitz-Gerald alongside Hudson Valley Investment Advisor CEO Gus Scacco. Keith, looks like investors do not have a problem going into the weekend long. How do you view that ahead of the Fed meeting next Wednesday?
Well, it's an interesting choice of words because they are trying to get ahead of the Fed. I think the expectations are that the inflation is going to come down. The Fed's going to do something realistic. So to me, this is normal. I'm glad to see it. I'd be worried if I didn't. Worried
if you didn't. What about you, Gus? And again, today we got the PCE numbers for the inflation in June. And you look at that number, especially the core PCE, 2.6%. I believe that's the lowest since March of 2021. Matching, a little bit hotter on some of the levels, especially with core, but anything in there to indicate to you that inflation has not been quelled?
We think it has, and you're going to see a continued lower move over the next couple of quarters. The big thing is we were talking about a Trump rally, we were talking about a Harris rally, and now really it's a Powell rally. And it's because interest rates, we think, are coming down. 99%
odds of September hike, Gus. So Keith just talked about getting ahead of next week.
Right.
That's July. It doesn't look like an interest rate cut
right.
for July, but are you getting ahead of anything, and how are you positioning that?
We think rates are going to come down. Generally, it's 120 days before the first cut that you start seeing interest rates start to come in, and then 120 days after that. So we're anticipating that, and we think that you're going to get a rotation again. And what we're seeing now, we think is more short covering than anything else. It's out of the stuff we loved and into the stuff that we hated.
One of the things that was hated Wednesday, certainly, Keith, were the SOX members, right? The semiconductors. The SOX took a pretty significant beating. That's the basket of all the names, including NVIDIA and Broadcom, Micron. You just can roll out the whole thing. Everybody was in the red. That looked like a really good buying opportunity, did it not?
Well, guess who went shopping? And that's exactly what I went after.
What'd you buy?
I bought NVIDIA, I bought AMD, I bought Palantir, I bought many of the names were beaten down because, you know, the markets are the only store on earth where people fear a sale. I believe in those companies long term. I'm willing to wait out the nonsense, and that to me, it was a great opportunity to do so.
Well, do you think it's nonsense, though, that there is a pretty pronounced rotation out of at least some of these very high-flying tech stocks and into the Russell 2000? I mean, the Russell looks like it's going to have gained this week alone 3%. Yeah, I'm looking at 3% here for the week, and S&P will be negative for the week by just under 1%, and the NASDAQ down 2% on the week.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I don't believe in the concept of rotation as it exists, you know, in the term is used today. I think that what's happening is you're seeing more patient money being drawn off the sidelines. It's going shopping. That's why longer term investing profits tend to overwhelm short term trading nonsense, as I use the term. It's not mean foolish or something you shouldn't pay attention to. What I'm saying is it's just noise, and I don't look at that. I want to look beyond that because I want to place the high probability bets.
Continued growth in earnings. Let's talk about that, Gus, because the earnings story has been very strong as part of this roller coaster ride this entire week. Tesla and Google were the naysayers. They were the ones that were drenched in red at the beginning of the week. That certainly colored the markets. And then you have Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing today, Charter, Mohawk. We're going to tell you more about Mohawk coming up. But does that narrative still continue where if some of the important names in each sector do well or poorly, that's going to be the magnet for the investors?
I think you're going to get a broadening out of the market. I think what you're saying is true. But along with Keith, I also agree that there is a good shopping opportunity here. NVIDIA is trading at 30 times forward earnings, but it's growing at 40%. Why not get involved with something like that? It's not that expensive relative to, you know, other growth factors there. And you're looking at 13.3% margins right now on operations. That's a record.
Is anybody worried about the fact that the core PCE number year over year, that's the Fed's favorite inflation number, came in 0.1% hotter? I'm looking at this, and I don't know, Keith, it looks like the PCE is an indicator that the disinflationary trend has kind of stalled here.
Well, yeah, I think it's very tempting to read it that way, and I wouldn't fault anybody who does. I think you're making a very sharp observation. But I also would, you know, say the way the markets work today isn't as much about psychology as it is about data. So this is knee-jerk reaction, highly computerized, very technical. So you got to take a deep breath and you got to take that stuff with a big grain of salt, Liz.
Yeah, that's the headline. And then the core came in year over year at 2.6%. Gentlemen, great to see you both. Thank you very much. We got the Dow up 612 points right now. Parent company of popular UGG boots has investors head over heels at this hour after its quarterly earnings report. We're going to tell you why